Welcome to the Lean Out Your Business podcast, a show dedicated to helping entrepreneurs accelerate business growth and simplify success. I'm your host, Krista Grasso, and I've been working with businesses for more than 2 decades to help them lean out and optimize what's working while eliminating anything that's not adding value. So if you are ready to get more time back in your day, more profit in your business, and to do business differently, growing and scaling on your terms, let's dive into today's episode. Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Lean Out Your Business podcast. Today, we are going to be talking about something that I'm so excited about. And this is for all of you who do B2B and you work with big companies, or for those of you who have been thinking about taking on larger corporations or larger companies as clients. And I am joined today by Laura Khalil, and I am so excited for our conversation. She is an expert in this space, and I got introduced to her from Miss Annie P. Ruggles, the Krista and Annie show. So anytime Annie introduces me to somebody, I know that I need to know them, and I'm quite excited for it. But as soon as Laura and I talked, we were on a roll. We talked for a very long time, and I knew I immediately wanted to bring her on the podcast because you will love what she has to share. Laura, welcome.
Oh my gosh, Krista, thank you so much for having me. I am really excited to be here. One, because I love you and I think you're amazing and what you're doing is amazing. And two, because I really want to demystify some of the stuff around bigger contracts and the stories we tell ourselves about them, because I want everyone to leave this episode today knowing it is absolutely within their reach to either go bigger inside of a corporation they're already in or break in. And I'm going to say this, Krista, break in even if you don't know anyone there. That's my bold claim. Boom, I'm done. That's it.
Okay, let's drop episode over. No.
Yeah, that was it. I'm making claims and now I'm exiting the room. But yeah, absolutely. It's within everyone's reach.
It really is. And I work with, for those of you listening, I know that I work with small businesses, but I also have worked with large businesses since 2000. So that is a whole lot of decades at this point. But that being said, I love the work that I do with large businesses. And I find most people don't quite understand it. It's like this magical mystery thing of how do you get into big businesses? How do you work with big businesses? What do you charge big businesses? Do you have to know somebody? And so I'm excited for you to break this down for everybody today. And even for those who already do work with big businesses, for you to share all of your wisdom on things they could do to get even bigger deals.
I love it. So I'll briefly let everyone know, I don't just talk about this stuff. I've been consulting with Fortune 500 companies since 2013 on marketing strategy. I come from this world, where I was in the startup world. So I actually, when I decided to finally start my own business, I didn't actually have connections in Fortune 500, but I knew I wanted to work with them. And I wanted for the audience just start by framing some of the misconceptions, and let's just get around them. There's a really common misconception that you have to have worked with Fortune 500 or even just larger companies to work with larger companies. And it's just not true. What you have to know how to do is solve problems. If you know how to solve problems for your clients today, or even for the companies you've been working at full-time today, then you know how to solve problems for larger organizations. At the root, it's all about being a problem solver. But I also want to suggest there are a number of advantages to working with bigger companies. And the reason I went that route is because I was tired of working with really small businesses where I felt like I always had to sing for my supper. Like I was coming from the startup world. So I would be the only marketing person. I was wearing approximately 35 hats all at once. I look like a freak walking down the street. And I always had to justify what I was doing to somebody who likely did not understand my job, and i.e. the founder. And that became very tiresome for me. And so the big, huge advantage to working with larger companies is A, you don't need to justify your existence. They already understand why they need you. And two, you are going to be working with people who are experts in their field, i.e., the full time employees you're going to be collaborating with, to help support whatever you're doing. So that actually means you're not going to be working as hard if you set up the contracts right and the proposals correctly. You're not going to be working as hard. You're going to have more support because you're going to have more internal resources, and you can do extremely well for yourself, and have a very normal, balanced life, which is exactly what I did. I got my first contract with a Fortune 500 tech company within 6 weeks of starting my business. It was my first $100,000 contract. I never worked for that client more than 15 or 20 hours a week. I was with that able to go and get bigger deals because I had the time to do it and to go sort of find more business. And that is how it can be. It is absolutely possible for everyone. Um, One thing you have to get away from, and this is imperative, is basing pricing around you as a human being and what you think your time is worth. That is a rookie mistake of the consulting world. The reason you can charge more in a large organization and do it totally ethically and fairly and justly is because we are charging based on value, not based on me like I am some cog in the industrial revolution. Krista, this is not 1860. I'm not working in a freaking factory, okay? I'm not like producing like wheels for a train car. It's like we're still operating under this crazy mentality. And it's like, no, I'm talking about the value I can produce. That value is based on my years of expertise. That value is based on all I have learned along the way. It's based on even being able to identify problems more quickly, again, because of the expertise, and make bigger impact. If I charged hourly for that, if I could do it faster, which I probably could than someone who was less experienced, I would be penalized for my status as an expert. And yes, I say expert, and I encourage everyone listening to it, listen, own it. You're an expert. Own it. Okay. We got to get away from all this false modesty. This is just craziness. You are an expert. Own it. And so I don't want to be penalized for my expertise. I want to be rewarded for it while providing great reward to the company. And that's why value-based pricing, bigger companies, bigger value, because it has bigger impact. And that's what it's all about. For me, it's all about how much impact can I provide to an organization. And the more impact I can provide, the more value I can provide, the more I can ethically charge for it. And well, that's how it's done, Krista, in a nutshell.
That's all.
That's it. That's it. I'm done. This is mic drop. I'm out of here.
No, you said something really fascinating though that I want to go back and key in on because I think it's so important because maybe those of you listening, you already work with B2B, or maybe you do B2B and you work with individuals so you understand the difference. But for anyone who doesn't, it is a really big difference, but it's not an obvious difference on the surface. And you touched on it. And so when I think about it, because I work with both, I work with small business and I work with big business. And the biggest difference is that this when you work with a small business owners wear a lot of hats. And small business owners probably wear some of the hats that they're hiring you for. Totally different when you're working in a big business. A big business is filled with a whole lot of specialists. They value somebody who has deep expertise, and they're not bringing you in to do a job that they already know how to do. They're bringing you in because they either don't know how to do that thing or they know that they want to get better results from what they're already doing. And it's a very, like I said, it sounds subtle, but it's a very, very big difference. In a smaller business, they're like, well, I could do that myself, so I'm only
Mhm.
going to pay this much for it. In a big business, they think in terms of return on investment. They're thinking, I only am going to be paying 50 grand a month for this person. Amazing. We're going to make millions. In a small business, you
Exactly.
do the exact same job, exact same number of hours, and you're not charging 50 grand a month. You're maybe charging two. And
Yep.
so it's night and day difference. And it's more how they look at you, and how they look at the return they're getting on you. And I'm so happy you touched on that because I don't hear many people kind of highlight that point.
It's not, so two things. One, it's not more work. People think if I work in corporate, it means I have to have more work. That doesn't necessarily have to be the case. It's more value you're providing. That's a very different thing. Second thing is we actually have an episode of Big Deal Energy where I break down, I think it's like 13 reasons that corporations will hire you. Krista, you just touched on a couple of them. I want to add a couple more to the list. They may have a skunk works team within the organization. And by skunk works, I mean they may have a new special project that's come up. Maybe the CEO has decided we're going to be like working on a new initiative. Well, guess what? They have to find resources to work on these new initiatives. I have gained contracts uh, picking up these little they're scrappy teams. And by scrappy, I mean these are like $1 million contracts or hundreds of thousands of dollars of contracts by being part of that team because they don't have an internal resource that they can put on the team for your particular function. They may also have the internal resources that could do your job, but guess what? Those people are on another project. They can't be pulled off of it. There can be fiscal reasons that they don't want to increase headcount. And so they will bring on a consultant because they do not have they have the budget, they have the money, but they don't have the headcount to bring you on. Also, I want to point out that as a consultant, you are way easier for them to hire. Way easier for them to hire than to have to go through the rigmarole of hiring an FTE. There's a half dozen more reasons that they will work with you. It is just in many cases way easier. They know that they're getting a professional. They know that they're getting someone who is going to show up, who's going to do the job. Because, literally, as Krista and I know, listen, if you don't perform, it's pretty simple. They're not going to keep you on the project. You have to be able to perform to stay on the project. And that doesn't mean anything crazy. That's all within the scope of your work that you have outlined. But there are so many advantages to hiring you. We see since 2008, since the Great Recession, what we have seen, and Krista, I know you've seen it too, all we have seen corporations do is move more and more towards contract and consultative work in place of hiring FTEs. And so that is just the direction that we are trending as a society. A lot of people think, well, there's more security in full time. And I have to say, I think that's a real false sense of security. I don't think there's really anything to that, particularly for anybody who's listening to this, who's still full time or still considering making the leap. They can let you go whenever they want. That's the truth. They can lay you off whenever they want. Um, so yeah, I just think there's huge advantages to it. I think there's very little drawback to working with bigger clients, but I do think you've got to be on your game. You do have to have certain standards of service and a level of professionalism that is really important. And by that, I mean, know how to manage a client. You have to know how to manage a client. You have to understand the relationship of I am not a hired hand. I'm in the sense of like I am not. It's not this imbalanced relationship where it's like they're my boss and I am this peon that just takes orders. That's not what we're talking about here. I want you to. The scales are equalized. The scales are balanced. I am I want you to just get in your head if you're listening to this. You're a trusted advisor. As a trusted advisor, I am the peer of the person that has hired me, or the group that has hired me, which means I need to show up with the energy, not of, oh, what can I do for you? No, that's low wage crap. Okay, that's not what I'm talking. That's hourly freelancer garbage. That's not what we're talking about here. We're talking about, I am putting on my trusted advisor hat. I believe in myself. I know what I'm doing, and I am here to advise the client on what is best and perhaps help them to implement it within their organization. That's why they're paying you the boku bucks, okay? So keep that in mind. It's not that imbalanced relationship. I think that shift is one of the biggest ones. That mental barrier is one of the biggest ones. One, if you're already in a company and you're already working B2B and you want to go get your next gig within that organization, you've got to be proactive. I recommend to everybody who is already within an organization working B2B, you better be networking the heck out of who else is in that company. Be doing coffee chats with the people that you meet, connecting on LinkedIn with the people that you meet, building those relationships because your new contract might be there. The other thing I strongly recommend is leaving a trail of your success. So we want to, especially as women, Krista, we have always been taught to be humble, to like just stay below the radar. And I know that in this podcast episode, I'm just throwing all that out the window right now. You got to brag. You have got to let them know what you've done. You have to be visible. I recommend sending regular status updates saying, here's what we've accomplished next. Can you imagine? And you know this, Krista, what this projects into the mind of the client when they say, wow, he or she or they is really on top of this. They seem to understand the project better than we do. And then when you start to come up for renewal or you start to come up towards the end of the contract, you set up the conversation about, here's what I would advise, the directions I would advise we look at next. Which way do you want to go? And then you set up the next contract for yourself, rather than waiting for them to ask you to, oh, like, could we keep you on for, another thing, or we'll try to find something else for you. No, you go find your work. You go identify new problems. Listen, every solution has a new problem. There's solution, problem, right? We often think problem, solution, but there's also, if I solve one solution, I've got a new set of problems that is going to emerge. Track what the new problems are, because people only buy solutions to problems. And if you've already demonstrated that you can solve problems, they're probably going to want to keep you on to solve more.
I remember I walked into a VP of this big, huge area. I mean, like, they ran billions of dollars through that division every single day. And I randomly walked into this guy's office and said, do you have 10 minutes? And he said, yeah. And I just drew on his whiteboard and I was like, this is what I think that we should do with your organization. And he said, I've seen your work. I see what you can do. I'm all in. You just have to get my leadership team on board. And I got his leadership team on board. And that was what I did for the next 10 months of my life.
Heck yeah.
A 10-minute, can I draw you something on your whiteboard conversation? Mm-hmm. But he would have thrown me out of his office if it weren't for the fact that I had already built the trust and the credibility. And he knew that he could trust that I would deliver on what I was telling him.
Exactly. It's so critically important to, again, a lot of this is the mental game of being able to project that kind of credibility and authority and not being afraid to express your opinion, express your beliefs, walk into the office like Krista did, and people will refer you. My business grew. I got a couple really big contracts when I was first starting out. And one of the guys I worked with, actually in both cases, but I'll talk about one of them in particular. This guy for 3 years after, referred me over $300,000 worth of business. I never worked with him again, but I worked with all the people he knew who, they needed help. And so I was sort of passed around the organization, and then those people at that company would leave and they'd go to another company, and then, they'd bring me in there. I call those people super connectors. Cultivating 5 super connectors within your network can be life-changing for any business owner. I don't care what business you're in. That could be life-changing, because these are people who have a natural desire to connect with others, to bring people together, and they can change the trajectory of your business. That only happens by doing the outreach. That only happens by being outgoing. Nobody is looking to discover you. Nobody's coming to save you. Nobody's waiting, to pick the needle out of the haystack or the diamond out of the rough. You got to go pick yourself up and start going to find them. And over time, it's like compound interest. It will continue to multiply and continue to multiply. And before you know it, you've got a really juicy, lucrative, and feel-good business on your hand. Now, Krista, there's something I didn't mention, but I really want to talk about, which is the size and length of contract. A lot of people think, oh, it must be really hard to get $100,000, $250,000, $1 million contract. But I know, you and I know something that I don't think other people realize. It's just as hard to get a $5,000 contract as it is to get a $500,000 contract. There's actually not much difference in the process. There's not like some sort of secret to getting those contracts that's different than getting the $5,000 contract. In fact, I might even argue, I'm curious for your point of view, that it might actually be easier, because when you're dealing with sums of money at that size, it is typically not their money. It is the company's money. It is a company strategic investment. We're not so like emotionally attached to the dollar amount. And if you've ever worked with a small business owner, or you've seen that meme that goes around the internet, which is like $500 budget, this is like all the money I have in the world, and like I'm relying on you to solve all my business problems. And then right below it, it says $50,000, proposal, check sent or money wired. Thanks. It's literally that. I mean, like, I actually think sometimes selling to smaller folks is a lot harder because it's a much more emotional decision. When you're playing with very small sums of money. What do you think about that?
Oh, I agree completely. And a lot of times, one of the things I love working with small business, I really do. But one of the things that I don't love as much is a lot of times when people are bringing you in a small business, they are literally treating you as if you are the superhero who is going to come in and swoop in and save their business.
Yeah.
And they're very impatient. They don't always recognize that a lot of times some of the challenges in the business are challenges that they're really kind of keeping in place by some of their decisions or their reluctance to make different decisions.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like they have all their hopes and dreams based on you. And that money that they're spending is so incredibly critical to them. And it's a lot of pressure that gets put on your shoulders. And
Right.
it's a lot of pressure on your shoulders for things that you don't always have control over, right? I mean, I can tell you right now, I can transform pretty much any single business, and I can tell you exactly what almost any single business should do. It does not mean the business owner will do it. When you are working in a bigger business, it's different. It's actually, in a lot of ways, it's less pressure, even though
Mm-hmm.
the stakes are high. They are, right? I mean,
Mm-hmm.
when I'm transforming a business that has 50,000 employees, right, the stakes are much different than when I'm transforming a company that has 3 contractors. For sure, it's
Exactly.
different. Yet, in a way, it actually feels like less pressure.
I totally agree completely. And the contracts, the main difference with signing those contracts, especially when you're dealing with six figure contracts in particular, the main difference is you just might have multiple people who need to sign off on it. Depends on the size of the organization and type of organization. But all that means is you just got to rely on being a really good communicator, being clear on who you're dealing with and who you need to bring into the conversation, and making sure that you are basing everything you do around solving problems for that organization. But once you're in and once they like you, which they probably already do if they want to hire you, just do a good job. They're going to want to keep you around. They're going to want to do more business with you. Great people know other great people. And that's what's going to really continue to propel the business forward. I do want to say one thing about this. Because one thing that can happen, particularly if we're in an organization already and we're doing the work and we're very focused on delivery of work, is I want to throw up a word of advice or caution to people who have gotten too comfortable, or what I'm going to call too, or let's just say comfortable. And that is that if you have neglected working on your business while you are working in someone else's business, your business is in trouble. I want everyone to be very careful that we do not stop business development. And by business development, if you haven't heard that term or aren't familiar, what that means is we haven't stopped developing relationships with and nurturing relationships with people we know and also people we don't yet know, our new friends and our current friends is what I like to call them. That cannot stop because frankly, we never know what's going to happen in the world. We never know where things are going to go. And if in fact your contract ends or you have been relying exclusively on referrals, which is it's like super awesome when that happens. However, if you're not nurturing the referral partners, if you're not nurturing new relationships, there may come a point, and there probably will, because I see this a lot when people say the business is drying up and I'm not sure what to do. And I've never had to develop the business development skills to go find my own work. It's always just come to me and then they come and find me. And it's a very scary place to be. So if you want to preempt that, learn to do the business development and work on your business while you are working in someone else's business. Don't let it go.
Absolutely. And my gosh, there's so much that I want to highlight that you said because it was brilliant. But that feels like a really good point for you to tell people a little bit about you and what you do and how you help people.
Oh, I'm happy to. So I run a program called Elevate, and Elevate is focused on helping consultants grow their businesses with bigger deals. And in particular, grow businesses where they are highly profitable. They may be the sole owner operator of the business, or maybe they have someone that they bring in part time here and there. But I love to work with that subset of people that would like to earn, $250,000, $500,000 a year running a business that is 90% to 100% profitable. That is a really cool place to be. And it is frankly a life-changing place to be. So I teach something called the Elevate Framework, which is what I have developed based on my own experience in consulting. And I've had, I don't know, hundreds of people learn from me at this point on how to get bigger deals. And it's really cool. So yeah, if anyone wants to learn more about that, head on over to bravebydesign.net. You can learn all about what I offer. And if there's something that looks cool to you, go check it out.
Yeah, Laura's work is really pretty incredible. And what I love so much about your approach and what you've shared here is you're really realistic about what it takes to be successful and about being bold and about sharing what you do and about not kind of hiding and being, it's in a lot of times, especially for someone who may have been an employee in the past or someone who's used to working in smaller businesses, you show up differently in big
Mm,
business. And I feel like those who are successful do that regularly. And those who wonder what happened and things kind of fade out are the ones who are a little more timid, the ones who are a little more reactionary, the ones who are kind of waiting for someone to take care of them or tell them what to do or to extend a contract
yeah.
instead of going out and getting it and claiming it and owning it and accepting and standing up as the brilliant, amazing human being that you are. So,
Krista, I have to say one thing about this quickly because I hear you and I hear me right now. And I imagine there is someone who's introverted who's listening to this and who's saying to themselves, well, I'm introverted. I don't think they're talking about me. And I want to tell you all this. Some of my most successful clients are introverted. And I want you to really hear me on why they're introverted. It is because it is not the person who talks the most who wins the contract. It is the person who speaks the least, who listens the best, and who can respond to what has been said. And guess what, folks? That's a freaking introvert. That is their natural superpower. That is not the natural superpower of an extrovert. And I say that as a more extroverted person. So you have a natural advantage being an introvert, and you absolutely can be successful.
Yeah, and I am an introvert. It's so funny. It depends on the day that I take the Myers-Briggs. Sometimes I show up extrovert, sometimes I show up introvert. So it kind of depends. And I feel like
Yeah.
for me, it's minute by minute which one is true. But I do a lot of the consultants that I work with are absolutely, I'd say probably I'd go with 60-40, 70-30 introvert versus extrovert, which is probably different from what a lot of people would imagine. So I'm
Yes.
glad you shared that.
Absolutely. I think about my own client roster right now. I don't think I can think of one gal we're working with who is super extroverted and awesome and amazing. And the rest are really on that spectrum, right? Of extroversion, introversion. And they're all doing really well. So it is absolutely possible for all of us to succeed using our natural superpowers.
All right. So I cannot wait to hear what you have to say about this. I feel like this is going to be fascinating, but this is the question I ask everybody. And I want to hear for you, for your business. How do you work smarter, not harder, and keep things lean?
Okay. Krista, we have video here, right? For anyone who is watching this on video. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
All right. I want to show you all, and I will orate this as well for our podcast friends, what I have on my desk that I look at every single day. And this is a sign that says, does it make the boat go faster? So I look at this every day, and let me explain this to you. So I think it was back in maybe 1918, the British rowing team, that was the last time the British rowing team won gold at the Summer Olympics. Now, for all of us who need a refresher, I don't think we do, that they're on a freaking island. And the British rowing team, since like 1918 or something crazy like that, could not win at the Olympics. They were the laughing stock of the Olympics. All right. So now the 2000 Sydney Olympics are approaching, and the team feels like a joke. And so their coach devises their strategy for winning gold. And that is that they are going to filter every single decision they make through one question. And that one question is, does it make the boat go faster? And so that decision making of, am I going to stay out late tonight and go party with the boys? Does it make the boat go faster? Probably not. So we're not going to do it. Am I going to, get up and go and, show up to do my rowing and eat properly? Yes, that's going to make the boat row faster. They did this for, I believe it was 2 years prior to the Olympics. And what happened? They won gold. And so I say to everyone, how do I make my business? Dead simple, because it is dead simple. I filter everything I do through that one question. And I constantly remind myself that if it doesn't make the boat go faster, I either need to drop it or delegate it, because it's not meant to be the thing I waste my time on. Remember, as solo or small business owners, Krista said it, our time is freaking precious. We just don't have that much time. And I bet you, like me, you have a family. You have things you want to go do in the world. You don't want to be staring at your computer screen at 2 a.m. That means we have to make choices about what we do now. And so I encourage everyone listening to make the decision today to put a Post-it or a sticky note in front of you that says, does it make the boat go faster? And look at that every day. And you will begin to create your own filtering system to get you the fastest results towards success.
Brilliant. Okay. And we could talk for days, but I'm going to wrap it up with one final question. And that is for those of the listeners who maybe are already working with B2B, they're working with big businesses already. Do you have any tips for them on how they can close bigger deals?
If you're already working with B2B, here's what I want you to do. Have you asked for a frickin' testimonial? The answer to that 9 times out of 10 is no, you have not. How do I know this? Because I hear this from my clients who work with Fortune 500 all the time. Okay. 1, we want to build social proof. Go ask for a testimonial. 2, I want you to write a case study of the work that you have done. I want you to take time and focus on your business for a second and write a case study. If you do these things while you're working with the organization and you're racking up wins for the organization, it's much easier to get it done. Most organizations want to help you do this. Yeah, they might have to filter it through their legal team if you're going to use their name, but that's not a huge deal. So I encourage you to just proactively get these things done. Third thing is be on the lookout for opportunities within that organization and start being clear with people. Hey, I'm looking for the next team I can help. Who do you think I should speak to? Most future business is going to come from past business. That's just how it works, or referrals. So who you've worked with in the past is a great indicator of who you may work with in the future. Go back to those former clients, nurture those relationships. There's one thing I always tell my clients, which is that there's 3 reasons that people are going to buy from you. And you have to be the right person. So if you've already worked with them, or if you've already demonstrated experience with corporate, or you've written the case study and things like that, you're the right person. Okay, they can see you solve these types of problems. You have to have the right solution, meaning you're offering a service that or solution that they actually need. Okay, so we've got the right person, we have the right solution. Now here's the third one that people typically ignore: the right time. Right person, right solution, right time. The only way you could be the right person, right solution, wrong time. And that's why people give up, because and I don't care what size business you're working with, they give up because they say, well, they don't need help from me. I said, well, go talk to them in 6 weeks. You never know what they're going to need then. Nurture the freaking relationships over time, because one day they are going to need your help. And if you are not in front of them at the moment where they need help, you could be the right person, right solution, but you're not there at the right time, and they will go with whoever is there at the right time. So remember that this is all about continuing to maintain this momentum in your business, even if you are currently working in corporate. Okay, can I say one more thing? I know I'm really going off. I'm just like off the rails here. I can't stop, Krista. She's going to turn off
It's
my.
amazing. Keep
She's
going.
gonna she's gonna turn my mic off in a second. She's like, I asked you one freaking question. It's been 10 minutes later, woman. Okay, here's the last thing I want to say. I want to give everyone a piece of advice. You know, Krista, you know why I do this? Is because I want to help 1 million entrepreneurs. I am so freaking obsessed with this goal of helping 1 million entrepreneurs in their business. I just want to give everything away. So here's the other thing I want everyone to know. If you're saying, you're hearing me say, oh, she wants me to get referrals, she wants me to get case studies, she wants me to reach out to people, where am I going to find time to do all this, Laura? What are you talking about? I want you to consider this. I believe, and what I teach, is that you should not be spending more than 50% of your time working on client work. You need to spend at least 50% of your time working on your business, doing the case studies, getting the referrals, getting the testimonials, prospecting, and 50% of your time working with the client, which means if we're working a normal work week, that you want to begin to structure just how you think about things as, how can I make a great living? How can I, and by that I mean providing incredible value. without spending more than 20 hours a week on client work. Because if you are spending 40 hours a week on client work, I mean, Krista told me we don't swear on this podcast, so I'm not going to swear, but you are up you know what creek without a paddle, okay? And I got to come freaking save you like a gosh darn lifeguard, because like you're going to kill yourself. Anyway, that's all I have to say about that, Krista. What was the question? I don't even remember.
I have been there. I might have tried that. And I will say from personal experience, please listen to Laura. She knows what she's talking about.
It's terrible.
Amazing. Laura, thank you so much for being here. I hope all of you listening got as much value out of this conversation as I did. I will see you again next week. Thanks so much for tuning in to this week's episode. If you have not yet taken our scalability assessment, I invite you to head to leanoutmethod.com/assessment and take our interactive assessment that's going to help you look at how simple, how sustainable, and how scalable your business currently is. It includes personalized recommendations of where to focus next to get your time back, to increase your impact, increase your profits, and ultimately step into your rich, fulfilled life. And finally, we'd love to see you inside our signature program, Simplify to Scale. You can head to leanoutmethod.com/ops to find all of the details on how we can help you uplevel your operations and get out of the day-to-day of your business.